Hey Tomahawk family, what's going on? I hope everybody's doing well. I'm just drinking my breakfast of champions right now. It's not as good as Daily Grind coffee, but this too shall pass. And I'll get to have my lovely Daily Grind coffee one of these days. We're looking at Matthew chapter 7, verses 24 to 29 here this morning for our devotional thought. And Jesus is wrapping up his famous Sermon on the Mount here in Matthew chapter 7, verses 24 to 29. And in the Sermon on the Mount, in Matthew 5 to Matthew 7, Jesus was kind of given an orientation day for those that wanted to follow him in his new kingdom. And he was telling those that wanted to follow him in his new kingdom what was going to be expected of them in his new kingdom. And in Matthew chapter 7, verses 24 to 29, Jesus is saying, this is what it looks like if you put these words of mine that I've told you into practice. Matthew chapter 7, verses 24 to 29. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. When Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed at his teaching, because he taught as one who had authority and not as their teachers of the law. So Jesus is telling his listeners, Jesus is telling those that were listening to the Sermon on the Mount, that this is what your life is going to look like if you put these words of mine that I've told you into practice. Your life is going to look like somebody that builds their house on a rock, because your life is going to be built on Jesus Christ as your foundation. But if you don't put these words of mine into practice, you're going to be like somebody that builds their house on sand, because you're going to be building your life on everything besides Jesus Christ. And here's the thing, I don't care what health and wealth preachers tell you, you're going to have storms when you follow Jesus. And those storms are going to take different forms. You know, some of those storms may be illness. Some of those storms may be death of a loved one. Some of those storms may be financial hardships. We're obviously dealing with a big storm right now with the coronavirus. Storms are going to happen. And is your life going to be built on the firm foundation of Jesus, or is your life going to be built on everything else besides Jesus? As you're going through this storm called the coronavirus, you're not going to get out of storms when you follow Jesus, but you're going to be able to endure storms if you're following Jesus and if you're building your life on Jesus as your foundation. Because there's a lot of people going through the storm right now that are building their life upon what feels good or what their itching ears want to hear. And that kind of mentality is not going to get people through this storm right now. They may find some temporary satisfaction here and there as they're going through this storm with that kind of mentality. But they're not going to get through the storm. They're not going to endure through the storm. This storm is going to make us stronger if we build our lives on the firm foundation of Jesus as we go through this storm. I hope you guys have a great day.